Hi, everyone. I am so excited to introduce our guest for today, Heather Keller. She is an actress and a writer and also a foster to adopt mom. So, super happy to have you here on the show today, Heather.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's nice to be here.
Yeah. So, I want to get right into it. You have, as I understand, you have one daughter. Is that
Mhm.
correct?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
So, tell us a little bit about your experience. How did you decide to foster, and how long did that process take?
So, I'm a breast cancer survivor. And so we were about to start our family and we found breast cancer. So we made embryos, we did all that. And I wasn't allowed, I had to do treatment, which was about 13 months. And then I wasn't allowed to really have kids because I had to continue a medication for 5 years. And
Mhm.
I wasn't allowed to have kids until I was done with that. So we were like, well, we don't want to wait 5 more years to start our family. So let's, see what other options are out there. We looked into, fostering and adopting and also private adoption. We also looked into using like a surrogate. And so
Mhm.
we kind of looked at everything, and we met with someone at an agency called Foster All, which she's my like foster guru, I call her. And she once we had that meeting, we knew right away. My husband and I just looked at each other and we were like, "Oh my gosh, this is what we want to do."
Wow.
Um, yeah, and
Is that in LA, or where is Foster All?
it is in LA. It's in Los
Okay.
Angeles. It's in Glendale, actually.
Okay.
And so we went through Children's Bureau, and so they kind of guided us. And we went through Children's Bureau. We became foster parents. It took us we took a little longer because I was working. So it was about
Mhm.
8 months. I was traveling with the show I do. And so it took a little longer than about 9 months, actually, the time that it would take to have a child. And
Right.
then, and then, yeah, and then our daughter came to us. So yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
And, how were you like, so I meant to actually introduce the name of your show because I'm so intrigued and I wanna go see this show. It's called
Yeah.
Chemo Barbie, which I just think
Yes.
is, like, the best name ever, and, like, I have to, when you pass through New York next time, you have to let me know because I really
I
wanna see
will.
the show. And it's a traveling show. It's a one-woman show, I'm assuming, about
Yes.
your experience with breast cancer and,
Yeah.
surviving breast cancer. Um, how did you do that and do the fostering process? Like, that just
Yeah,
seems
right.
so, like, insane to me. Like, can you talk about that for a minute? Like, how did you do that?
Yeah. So, I was with the show premiered in 2017, and I had plans to go to the Edinburgh Fringe Festival. It was 2018. So that takes some time to plan and everything. And in the meantime, our daughter came to us about 3.5 months old. And it was like March of 2018. And so I knew I had this show coming up. I had this festival, and so we had it was a lot of work. We had to work with the foster care system to leave the country because they don't normally allow a child that's in the system to go anywhere outside of a certain range
Right.
without permission.
Mhm.
And she was allowed to leave the country for 10 days. So the social worker had to go to the court. We had to go, to the she took care of it. She went to the court and got permission.
Right.
And then anytime we had to leave town, our situation was there. We had a birth mom for a year, um,
Okay.
who was also in the system.
Uh-huh.
So we had to okay it with her, but she would come and go a lot. So we had to kind of run it by her. And she was like, okay, yeah, you want to take her to Scotland? Sure. So,
Right.
she's kind
Right.
of like, okay. Like,
Wow.
um,
Yeah.
yeah.
You
So
know, not to interrupt, but it's funny
yeah.
because I remember when I was going through the process, of fostering when we first got my daughter, and then we had a wedding in New York. That's when I was living in LA, and we had a wedding in New York, like, a couple months later, and I remember being really nervous and scared to ask if we could go and what that was gonna be like, and they were pretty encouraging. They were actually like, I was surprised, but it
Yeah.
makes sense. They were like, "N Hey, it's great. It's really great for the child to be able to travel and to have those experiences." So that's interesting that that extends to international travel as
Yes.
well.
It
That's
just takes a
great.
little more paperwork, and I was there for 30 days and she could only come for 10. So my husband came separate.
Ah,
And
okay.
you have to fill out things like there, we actually, my producers found a flat apartment right across from a children's hospital in
Wow.
Edmonton. So you have to be within a certain amount of, there's a lot of technicality kind of rules, but it was doable.
Right.
And we were right,
Right.
the children's hospital was right there in case anything happened. Nothing happened.
Sure.
Fine. We
Sure.
didn't
And you
need
have
it.
to, right. You have to
Yeah.
give them your exact
Yeah.
whereabouts and all of that stuff. And then it's interesting because she wouldn't have had a passport.
We had to get
So,
that.
right.
Yep.
So, oh, you had to like expedite a passport for her.
Yes.
And
Yes.
then if you didn't have her social security, I ran into this a lot with like, well, I don't have the social security number. So like, how can I get a blah, blah, blah? It was really confusing, but you
So
navigated that.
well, yes, and she arrived with a social security. They
Oh,
come to
she
you.
did.
Yes.
Okay. Because
So
mine
our,
didn't,
didn't. Yes.
weirdly. Mm-mm.
Yeah. I don't know how you navigate that. I think the court, well, so what, basically what when I got the paperwork, it was, I had to go to get like her birth certificate, and the paperwork, it was a court order. So a court order kind of just null and voids everything. Like they look at it,
Okay.
court order. Oh, I have to do
Mm-hmm.
it. I have to give her
Mm-hmm.
this. And yeah. So, yeah, it's extra work. They suggested respite care. I don't know if people know what that is, where like you leave the child with another foster family for a little
Mm.
while you're on vacation or whatever. And I was like, no, this is our
No
child.
way.
Even
Right.
if we
Yeah.
don't know if she's going to stay with us, um, you know, you want them to have that bonding. You want to have
Right.
all of
That's
that
right. That's
thing at
right.
a young age.
And was that difficult? I was an actor before I became a voice actor and audiobook narrator. So I'm just thinking about what it takes to do a show
Yes.
live and then having this other thing in your personal life that is just so big there.
Yeah.
Having this baby, I mean, that just must have been a lot to hold at one time. Like, how did it go in Edinburgh?
It was
Did it go
great.
well?
It was a
Good.
lot.
Yeah.
My husband was there and he took off of work for that amount of time. And my
Mm-hmm.
mother, who had never traveled internationally, decided she was going to come. And the show had been around for over a year. And it was the first time she saw my show. So she saw it in the festival
Oh,
there.
wow.
And then she was able to kind of watch in the evenings if I had, different commitments to do in the
Mm-hmm.
evening. And so she watched her.
Nice.
Yeah, but it's a lot. It is a lot.
Right.
I have photos of her backstage with me. I was actually doing another show at the time too. I was doing
Oh
a
my
children's
God.
show, which was a union show when she first came to our house. And so I was like, oh, we got a call. I told the cast. So one day I was not a parent, and then the next day
Right.
I show up and I've got like a baby with me, and the producers sat with her in the back, and she fell asleep. Luckily, it was a
Yeah.
short show. It was like an hour because it was a kid's show. She just fell asleep. I dressed her up in a big fancy, like I was like, this is her first time at the theater.
Yes.
This giant poofy dress. That's it. So, yeah,
That's awesome.
it's a
Yeah.
lot. It is a lot. I mean,
Right.
parent.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, totally. And so, what was it like in early fostering days? How, what was she coming to you with any sort of special needs or, what had her experience been for the 3.5 months before she was with you? All of that stuff.
So she was born early, a preemie, very
Okay.
early, 29-week preemie. And so she was in the NICU for 6 weeks. And then she was released to her birth mother, who, there wasn't, she was able to be released to birth mom.
Hmm.
And so she left the hospital with her. And then she was a kid, just kind of traveling around town, hanging out. And then she was in a group home with her. Um,
Hmm.
she was a teenager. And
Right.
then she came to us. And so, yeah, it was kind of, I'm actually writing another show called Parentified that has this kind of a scene. It's not
Hmm.
a story, but it's similar to a story when a child arrives at the house. So she arrived in a tiny little, she was only like 8 pounds at 3.5 months. And
Wow.
she arrived with just a social worker that was the driver, they're just a
Hmm.
driver of kids.
Hmm.
And so she showed up with like a paperwork and a little bag of there were like 5 hats, like there were hats and like
Hmm.
just a few items in a diaper bag.
Hmm.
And that's it was hard. It was hard to
Yeah.
kind you don't know a lot, you're not sure, is this child going to stay with you? Is this child going to go? But and then, yeah, we didn't,
Was
it's challenging.
Was your family on board? Your family and your friends, your community, essentially. It sounds like they may have been on board with it. Was there any hesitation on anybody's part, or was it like, okay, we're going to support you, you're doing this, and that kind of thing?
No, there was no hesitation. My dad did say something at one point, kind of like, well, DNA goes a long way, and I was like, I don't really know what you mean by that, but okay. But after that, they actually in Scotland was the first time that my mom had met her. So
Mm,
they were supportive. Everyone was pretty supportive. Like we had friends that came over that night that she arrived and they wanted to meet her and they showed us how to swaddle, just things like that. So I had friends
mm-hmm.
that like I said, I was doing a show at the time. So my friends would meet me at the theater sometimes and just watch her, walk her and
Yeah.
stuff while I performed. And then, so I had a good, in the very beginning, it's always been very supportive actually.
Uh-huh.
And the support comes from places you just didn't know it would come from. Did you find that?
Mm-hmm.
Did you find that with your?
Yes, I did, in fact. Like, certain people, was just my experience. Like, a couple people that I wasn't even really that close with really showed up and were
Yeah,
just like, all right, like, let me help you. Let me hold the baby. Let me come over and like bring you Starbucks and like whatever. And then people I was closer to were still really supportive, but maybe not as like there. And I think the difference was, I think all the people that really showed up are the people who already had kids
yes,
because they got it. They were just like, this is huge. Like, I have to help this poor woman, like, in the first, like in the early times. So that was my experience. It's just like if you are a mom already, you know what that's like. It's
yeah,
just so consuming at the beginning. And to not have any lead time or much lead time, and you don't even know who you're going to be welcoming into your home, what age that child is going to be. Um, and then suddenly they're just there and it's all
yes.
consuming.
Yeah.
What was your experience?
It was similar. It was kind of like people showed up with bags of clothing. You're like, oh my God, I need to get rid of, I have 8 bags here. They're
Yes.
one of onesies, and Jess's. And there was this a woman who, a single mom who adopted private adoption though, and she had tried for years and all that. And so she showed her clothing they were dresses with matching like everything matched, it was all like
Yep.
pinned together so nice. And um yeah, people like my friends that came over that night, like they had 2 kids. No, she was pregnant and had one. So they knew,
Hmm.
they're like, this is a lot, this is what you're gonna do.
Yeah.
We called them actually from the aisle of Target because we were like, you're as prepared as you can be. You have the crib set up, but
Right.
baby doesn't really use a crib right away. Because
Right.
net and all. You didn't know what age you're gonna get. You just don't know. And so we had 0 to 3 written down, and
Right.
she was a preemie though, so she was really only like she was 3.5 months, but she was really equal to like a month old. So
Right.
they showed up and we were calling them from Target. Like Brian and I are like, what bottles do we get? I have no idea.
Mm.
Like she's so small, like what diapers? She's only 8 pounds. Like we had to get like the tiny little diapers, so we
Right.
called those are the people that we called. And we were like, oh, and part of them, well, I breastfed. I was like, well, okay. It's like, but you
Right.
want this kind of a nipple, and I know you want this, and my other friend did this. And just yeah, you got. And then they came over that night, and they were like, "This is how you swaddle." And the first time we swaddled her, she just fell right asleep. She just
Aw.
like she was fine. She seemed like she was finally safe, like she's like, I
Yeah.
can
Oh,
relax.
yeah.
I can relax.
Right.
So
That's right. Yeah,
yeah,
that both of my children loved also being swaddled. They
yeah,
loved it. Yep.
yeah.
Yep, yep. I remember I had I had a friends that were a gay male couple who had adopted, and they were like, "Oh my God, the one thing you have to get is a formula dispenser." I can't remember what it's called now. It's like a particular brand or whatever.
Oh,
But and I was like, "What? I don't need that. Like, what do you mean? I'm not going to need that." And they were like, "No, you need that. Like, you
yeah,
need it
that's what
because you don't want to be sitting there trying to like warm up the bottle to the right temperature and this and that and whatever." And for my first child, I did not get it. And
okay.
you better believe the second time around, I was like, oh my God, I'm getting the freaking dispenser like for the formula. And it was like so good. You just set it to whatever formula it is And,
Yeah.
like, it's you set that there's like a little, I don't
Does
even
it
know how to
sanitize
describe it.
too? Does it do like a
And
sanitize?
it pretty much does it's like a coffee maker, but it's a formula maker.
Oh,
So you can clean it from time to time, but it's fantastic. That and the snoo. Did they have snoo at that point? Because that was the other thing for me that was like a game changer with baby number 2. I didn't do it. We didn't even know about it for my daughter, but for my son.
I've
And for
heard about
anybody who yeah, for people who don't know what it is, the snoo is like, it's an automatic rocker, like a bassinet that rocks the child automatically, and so for my daughter, it wouldn't have mattered anyway because she was a really good sleeper for the
yeah.
most part, but man, with my son, he had colic and he would just cry all the time. And I was like so grateful for the snoo. So grateful. And I felt a little bit guilty because I'm like, oh, it should be me, but also like I need sleep and this child needs
Oh,
sleep. So
yeah.
yeah. So those are my two big things.
We didn't have that. My friends had that. They were a couple years after me, but we had the Rock and Play, which has now been recalled. Do you remember
Yes,
that?
I do. And I've heard that it has been recalled. Yeah.
Yes. But we used that. She loved that. We put her in there.
Hmm.
It was just like out. And
Yeah.
she was a really good sleeper. Well, when she first came to us, she was awake 12 to 6 a.m. Those were just her
Oh
awake hours.
God.
She must have been awake, it's her birth mom. And so it took about a week and a half, 2 weeks, which is fast to just get her to go to sleep during
That is fast.
and
Yeah.
yeah, so she was I would remember just being like, put her in the Rock and Play and please fall asleep.
Right. Right.
Because she
Right.
slept a lot. She was malnourished and things. So she needed
Yeah.
always sleeping.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
And so you did visitations. You
Yeah.
had visits with the birth mom.
Yeah.
And how did those go? Because another thing for me is that we never did visits. We didn't have
Oh,
the birth parents. My daughter's birth parents were sort of MIA and missing, and my son was a safe surrender. So we never did the visit thing. So I'm curious to hear about how the visits went. What was that like? Because I know that's a huge part of it that we didn't
yeah.
experience.
So I said birth mom was underage and a foster
Hmm.
child too. So we had a lot of visits for the first year. And now, she would come and go because she was a teenager, and so
Hmm.
disappears. Then we wouldn't have visits, and then she would appear again. Then we'd have to immediately, get visits back on track
Hmm.
because she was also under in the system. So,
Right.
um, so that I kind of just want to take both of them. I kind of be like,
Yeah, totally.
you
I
can't
could see
always,
that.
yeah, you can't. There's
Was
a lot
she
of
with a foster family herself? The mom?
uh, no, she was in a group homes.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't
Uh-huh.
know if you know much about group homes, but there's a thing called AWOLing where they leave and then they lose their bed, and it's basically they've disappeared, and
Ah,
and then they'll
okay.
come back, and then they go away for a while, hang out with friends,
Mhm.
she had some family, um, and then they come back, and then you know um, services are always provided. They kind of at that
Okay.
age they kind of know like if I come back, I'll get my whatever I need
Right. Yeah.
and now I've run out
Yeah.
of whatever, my bus pass is expired or something, and I gotta go back for a little bit, and then they'll leave again, and
Right.
in summer, they tend to leave, it's just there's a pattern to it,
Uh-huh.
which we discovered. We didn't know. It was kind of a learning curve, but
Uh-huh.
we did have almost a year, and then,
Mhm.
we were TPR'd,
Okay.
and then after that, she was kind of she was gone, yeah.
TPR is
Yeah,
parental termination of parental rights
yeah,
for
yeah.
listeners. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And so we did go to the court hearings and things, just to show that like our daughter was in a safe place.
Sure.
We're here, and to answer any questions if the judge had any questions. And the judge would just kind of like, oh, thank you for coming. We really appreciate what you're doing. They
Mm.
very grateful for us being there and showing support. Because you're not only showing support for the child in your placement and care, but you're also showing support for the system and you're also showing support for the birth parent, you
Yeah.
know, and there's a lot you're doing this to help ultimately reunify.
Right.
And our situation was we, of course, we wanted to adopt. But also, now I'm 8 years now removed from cancer. I'm cancer free. But
Mhm.
at the time when you're in that situation and you've just finished like hardcore treatment and like
Mhm.
I had chemo and I had radiation and I had
Mhm.
tamoxifen and I had all this stuff, your brain always goes, "Oh gosh, I could die. And if I die, and I'm
Mhm.
not, I'm
Mhm.
fine."
Yeah.
And the stats were totally like basically 100% cure rate, they because of
Yeah.
the type but you still have that in your head. And for me, it was like, and I don't mean to be dramatic or sound dramatic, but it was like, well, I wanted the chance to be a parent. This is my
Mhm.
chance. And if she reunifies, then at least I had a moment where I was a mom before I died. Like I'm
Mm.
just sort of like,
Yeah.
and I wasn't going to die. And I mean, we all are, but you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yes.
am I
Oh,
being
no.
too dramatic? I don't know.
No. Yeah, I don't think you are at all. I totally get that.
But
Like,
there
I
was that
totally
side
get
for
that.
us too. So we were there to like
Right.
support, be like, if she reunifies, at least we had the chance to be parents.
Sure.
And yeah.
And to
But
do
the whole
something really
family
awesome for yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. When did you know that it was looking like adoption was like, okay, this is going to go forward? And then how long did it take from there to finalization?
Um, there were signs along the whole, now looking back.
Mhm.
Um, but we had like I definitely knew when sorry, it sounds like there's someone at our house. Strange. Um so when she was TPR, that's obviously like, okay, then it's definitely adoption. But
Right.
my foster person at Foster All, Foster Nadia Polanese is her name. She's amazing. She's my
Mhm.
foster guru. And the whole time she was like, just love on that child. They had this, it's very hard when it's a teenager in the system because
Mhm.
they have a lot to do to overcome and get a child back. And
Right.
so,
Yep.
there looking back, there were signs, and not
Gotcha.
not to get too personal, like, about her story and my daughter's
Mhm.
story, but I could tell kind of now I know going in, okay, that was a sign. This was a sign. Oh,
Right.
she's disappearing. This is not going to look good, for long
Right.
reunification and just
Right.
certain things that were happening in
Yep.
the group home and stuff. So, yeah.
Okay.
Is
And
that
yeah, yeah, no, that makes sense. And have you been able to maintain a relationship with her or no?
No, she was a little dangerous, so we couldn't for
Okay.
safety
Sure.
reasons.
Mhm.
And she did reach out once on our daughter's 4th birthday through she found my show and then reached out through the show's website.
Mm. Mhm.
And then I just responded, she said, "Please wish her happy birthday."
Mm.
Wish it all, because you just it's unfortunate that this is, fostering is bittersweet, you're like, "Oh, someone lost out."
That's
And
right.
so, yeah, I reached out and I said, or she reached out and I responded. And then, I said, I, I'll definitely wish her a happy birthday. And I did. And this is what, she said. And she said, "Thank you so much for saying happy birthday to me."
Mhm.
And then, that's at the time she was 4. And then she asked for photos. And I was like, that's kind of our cutoff because I know they'll end up online,
Mm.
safe situation.
Mhm.
So I was like, okay,
Mhm.
and I just didn't respond. So then we haven't heard from her
Mhm.
since.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it is
Yeah.
hard. It's hard because it is I don't know, do you find that a little bit? Like, fostering is
I
bittersweet.
do. I mean, so much of what you're saying, yeah, 100%. Like, they said to us right in the beginning of our classes for fostering,
Mhm.
they said something that always really struck me, and they said,
Yeah.
you have to remember that this this thing you're embarking on, it starts with a tragedy. It starts with a
Yes.
loss.
Mhm.
So that's what you're going into, and for you, it might be a gain, but you have to remember that this child has had a loss, and the birth family has had a loss, and
Mhm.
so it's just such a delicate
Yeah.
dance and situation, and I mean, I just yeah, I relate to you. I relate to what you were saying about also wishing that you could help the birth mom because I often thought, my God, like this poor kid, my daughter's birth mom was also in the system.
Okay.
And, it's this cycle, this
Yes.
generational thing. And I thought, my God, if I don't know what would happen if she ever came and like wanted help or wanted to be involved. Like I have love in my heart for her. Like she
Yeah.
birthed my child,
Yeah.
and like I will never ever forget that amazing gift that she's given us and this amazing person that she brought into the world. And yeah, it's really hard, but also you have to keep your child safe. And
Yeah.
we haven't had any contact with her family. With my son, he was a safe surrender, as I said, so we have
Yeah.
no idea, which is another whole thing that is
Yeah.
really challenging in a different way, especially as he gets older and, has questions. We're not going to be able to provide him answers, which is difficult. But for with my daughter, we have maintained a connection with one of her uncles, so her birth
Oh, okay.
father's brother, who is just the nicest, sweetest man. And we made contact initially when we were fostering, and he gave us his blessing. It was the only sort of
Okay.
viable family that she could have gone to in the
Yeah.
birth family, and he wasn't available for that. They had another child and they just couldn't take it on. And so we had a conversation, and he was like, do you want her? And I was like, are you kidding me? Like, yes, like we love her.
How long had
We
she been
want
with
her.
you at that point?
She had probably been with us about, I want to say maybe 9 months or something. So it was like a long time. And we were like, yes,
Yeah.
we love her.
Yes.
Um, and that was really frightening for us. But also, it's like, this is her birth family. And so he just said, we just want you to know, we want Izzy to know that she has an uncle and an aunt and a cousin who love her very much.
Oh, sweet.
And, and I was just like, oh, and we've stayed in touch. And, I kind of lost touch for a little bit because I was just dealing with the fostering situation, and it was exhausting and
Yeah.
all of the stuff. But we've since reconnected, and he sent her a birthday gift this year, and I'm so grateful. Like I really, when she gets older, I would love for them to be able to meet and like have a relationship and all that. But as you said, and for I'm the same way as you in terms of like I'm sort of in the public eye, so there's
Yeah.
no real hiding
Right.
my whereabouts or yours. You know what I mean? Like we're kind of like out there. You can find us online. So that is a little bit concerning sometimes, of just like you don't know who's going to track you down or whatever, but I have to just trust that it's all going to be okay, and we'll handle whatever comes up,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
And, I really do care about the birth mom and,
Mhm.
and so we had a really good rapport, for what
Mhm.
it could be, and, it is hard, but yeah, you have to kind of yeah, I mean, anytime I have a show, I'm like, could she be showing up?
Right, like who's in the audience? Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Um, yeah, you hope yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
and
it
at
is.
some
It's
point, I feel like my daughter's gonna wanna know, and am I gonna be
Mhm.
driving her to a visit with her, and will
Right.
she show up or will she not? And then there's
Right.
that aspect, this so it's kinda it's yeah, it is that it goes back to that kind of bittersweet of, like, you're taking on this your family has been created, you're so grateful for it, but at the
Yes.
same time, there's things about it that other families that are, however typical, I don't know how you wanna describe it,
Right.
don't have to
Traditional.
think
Yeah.
about traditional, yeah,
Mhm.
having to drive and
Mhm.
maybe drive your child to a visit with their birth parent when they're 18,
Right.
19, or whenever,
That's right.
yeah,
Yeah, it is. It's a unique situation. It will always be there. Like it will just
yeah,
always be there.
yeah,
I'm aware, as I'm sure you are, of you know, prenatal trauma and birth trauma and all of that. So that trauma is always
yeah,
going to kind of be there, and we can work through it as it comes up, and you just do the best you can. And I always like to remind myself that, every family has their stuff. Every family has their
every
stuff that they
yeah,
have to manage and navigate, and this is a part of our stuff. It's just a
right,
part of it, you
yeah,
know?
yeah, yeah,
But it
uh,
is a unique it's definitely a
it's
unique.
definitely unique, and it
Yep.
kind of yeah, and like you said, being in the public eye is a little challenging, and you also we were at We just saw our family. We flew back east over the summer and visited family, and they're, it's great and it's lovely and we had a really great time. But things come up, like my daughter said in front of like my mother and my sister-in-law, like, well, yeah, you don't have to birth a baby to be a mom. And like, she's, right. But
I
like,
love it.
my mom has never, it's not something that like, and my mom was fine with it. My sister-in-law was fine with it, but it's not on their radar, is really what it is.
Sure.
Really.
Yeah. I
It's just,
love that though. How amazing that it is on your daughter's radar. That's
yes.
so cool, you know? I love that. I that brings me to something I would love to talk more about or talk about, which is the transracial piece. As I
Yes.
understand it, yours is a transracial family, so is mine. And so navigating that, I'm very curious always to hear how you're navigating that, what has come up for you around that, and that kind of thing.
Yeah. You know, I went into it like kind of like you fill out all this paperwork. You're like, oh, I want any baby, of course. It's a
Right,
baby, I don't care, and I'm, you know, a Caucasian, white, whatever you want to say, woman, and,
right.
had this sort of, I guess you could say, white privilege veil that I had, and I was like, "Of course, I don't care." And, and then she's our daughter's Black, and, I didn't think anything of it until things started happening, and I was like, "What?"
Mm,
Like, I went out for a run when summer runner, so when she first came to us, it was like, I don't know, maybe the second week or so, and a woman leans over and she looks and she goes, "Oh, is your husband dark?" And I was,
wow.
so it's just things I never expected, and I was like,
Right.
"Is it is it your business?" Or,
Yeah,
and
that's so weird that somebody would say that, but
yeah,
okay.
so it's kind of experiences that, we put her in school and I was like, "Oh, wait a second. She's the only Black child."
Mhm.
And then I was like, "Okay, well, where are all the Black families?" Like where,
Yeah.
it's sort of this like unawareness that I had until I became a parent of a person of color.
Mhm.
And it's
What part of LA are you in?
so we're in East LA, so it's a very,
Okay.
segregated, and,
Mhm.
we had a school that just wasn't working, and she said to me, well, she had a concert and go ahead, what were you gonna say?
Well, I was just gonna say when you say segregated, just for people who aren't familiar with LA and you know what I mean, like what
It's like a
is
hot
the
topic right now too, it's like
um so there's a lot of so traditionally it's been a Hispanic
right,
area, right?
yeah,
Like
next, yeah,
very
mhm,
very uh Latino area.
mhm,
And then but then there's a lot of gentrification and there's a lot of white people who have come in, and is
yeah,
that what you're referring to? And then
yes,
African
yes,
Americans are I found LA to be so segregated in terms
very
of
sorry,
like black and white. It was like
yeah,
astonishing to me that a big city like LA would be like that. And I have to be honest, since we moved back to New York, I'm originally from New York, and we moved here a year ago, and I am so relieved just to like be in it's just very mixed. It's much, much more of a mixed situation out there,
well, I grew
which
up in New
is
York too, and
nice.
so I did a bunch of, theater in the city, and
Mhm.
it's just very mixed, and so
Yep.
when I moved here, I was like, "This is it." I didn't really know, I guess I didn't notice it as much until I became a
Mhm.
parent, and then I was
Right.
like, but it is very segregated, and,
Mhm.
um, yeah, where we're East LA, and one area, it was one of the last places to stop redlining. So,
Wait, what's redlining?
uh,
Sorry.
I hope, yeah, it's like Black people couldn't buy in this neighborhood. Uh,
Oh, okay. Sorry, I
yeah.
just wasn't familiar with the term.
So, it's one of the last
Wow.
neighborhoods, so
Mhm.
it's taken a long time for it to get more,
Right.
mixed, but it's slowly happening, but it won't be until, like, my daughter's older, and,
Right.
um, but anyway, we found pockets, so East LA is not, it's very, yeah, like you said, that Latino, and so we found West LA is, more, but it's kind of far to go for school, so
Right.
Pasadena, Altadena area has a lot, it's more mixed there. So
Okay.
we had to figure that out. And now
Mhm.
she, um, we tend to do a lot in that area or West LA or, just
Sure.
it's the fifth segregated school district in the country. New
Wow.
York, but Manhattan is the second. So
Really?
yeah, yeah.
Wow.
Even though it's mixed, it's very school-wise, it's very segregated. So we're at a
Yeah.
school now where it's diverse in her direction. Her
Mhm. Mhm.
previous school was
Mhm.
very, she was not, and she noticed it. She notices these
Sure.
things, and we talk about it, how not all families look alike. It's just that our family looks this way, and that, and you don't have to birth a baby to be a parent. You can
Mhm.
have different colors in every family, and I guess you could say a rainbow family. And so it's definitely, I toured 14 schools before we ended up where we are at.
Mhm. Mhm.
I would do head counts in the classrooms and be like, how many
Mhm.
kids, how diverse is it in her direction? And
Yep.
some of the schools just, it would not work. So
Right.
it's
Yeah.
definitely tricky and challenging. And
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah.
some of the principals would be like, why is this white woman asking how many black kids are in the school?
Right.
And I'm like, oh, we're a transracial family. A lot of people don't even know what that means.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. I know. I was just talking with somebody else, another foster to adopt mom, and we were talking about just how unfortunate it is that a lot of the schools that are like maybe say predominantly black
Yeah.
are the not as they're not performing as high as the white schools, and that is the racism in our country that is
Mhm.
just there. It's not always the case, but it is a lot, and how difficult that is. A decision on a personal level about what is the most important thing, and like what do you do in those situations? Like, do you put them in a school that's maybe not performing as well
Right.
but has a large black population, or do you put them in a different school that doesn't have as much of a larger black population but is like performing well, and then supplement with other things?
Yeah.
It is
Yeah.
like a conundrum.
It is.
And some people would say probably, well, no, it's not. You need to put that child in a black school with black teachers and black, and I get that. I do. I'm
Yes.
so aware of it. And also it's like, but I also want my child to like have a really good education. So how do we make that work?
Well,
It's
yeah, when they're younger, while we were trying to figure out like where are I don't, where are other people that look like her?
yeah.
Because I'm walking the street, going down to my local restaurant, and it's not here, and it's not there, and it's so I contacted a really great organization that's within LAUSD, and they said it's called Black Student Appreciation Project, and they help
Mm.
Black students thrive within the district. And
Mhm.
so we went over school after school after school, over more than 30 schools in this area, and the
Oh, that's
most.
great.
One of the schools was 768 kids, and they had 10 Black students.
Mm.
So it just goes to and that was the only school. Like, the other
Right.
schools had none or one.
Right.
And
Right.
so, we enrolled her in a dance class that was, Debbie Allen Dance Academy.
Mhm.
We show up, and I'm standing online, and I'm like, "Oh, boy," because she starts saying, "Mom, look, that person has beautiful brown skin like me. Wait,
Mm.
Mom, that person does too." And it was like all these, because it's predominantly a Black dance studio.
Mhm.
And I wanted to, like, cry because I'm like, "Oh my god, my poor child has been missing
Yeah.
this." And like,
Yeah.
"Oh, I found a place that she can thrive and see other people and be with people that look like
Yeah.
her."
Yeah,
Um,
it's really
we
important.
did it like we did it in, that was like the beginning of like, okay, and that was like the age of 3. And then,
Mhm.
we just well, we also had the pandemic thrown in there, so we couldn't really
Mhm.
go anywhere, things were closed. So, um,
Right. Right.
yeah, she notices. She said, Mom, when I looked out at the audience, it made me really sad to only see one beautiful, this is her words, one beautiful brown skinned human. And the
I
rest
love
are all,
that.
everyone else was peach, because we were peach. And so
Right.
I was like, where, it just
Wow.
hit me. I'm
And
like,
you had never talked
I
to
was
her
gonna
about
mention,
race?
we
Like,
have,
she just
yeah,
came up with that? Or you had
yes.
like yes.
we always, well, as a baby, we would refer to her skin. We'd lotion her, put lotion and oil on everything. We'd say beautiful brown skin, just so she, you know,
Yes.
it was told to do this, and it wasn't just like, like just a positive thing, because it is positive. It's she's gorgeous, and so
Absolutely.
how how do we make her proud of that? And so
Yeah.
that was one of the things. We had a song we would sing, like, we're lotioning up your beautiful brown skin. Like, um, I don't know, maybe this is totally inappropriate, like, to talk about. I have no idea. But these are the things that you
I
kind
don't
of
think it's
know.
Yeah. No,
We
I
still
don't think it's inappropriate at all. I think it's something that needs to be talked about
Yeah,
more because especially as white people potentially adopting people
yeah,
of color, like we need to know, we need to learn how to do black hair. We need
yes,
to take our children to black barbershops. Like
yes.
all of that stuff is like we need to talk about it.
So we sought that out. We go to a place, it's really great. It's in Inglewood. I love Lulu Hair Cafe,
Mhm.
and, yeah, we bring her there, and I've learned how to take care. You have to learn how to take care of black hair. It
Mhm.
is different, and, from what I grew up with.
Right.
Uh, One of the biggest actual, like, compliments I received was her principal is a black man, and, he called me about something unrelated, and then he goes, "By the way, who did her hair?" And I was like, "Oh, no. Oh, no. Oh, no." I'm, like,
Right.
sweating bullets. I'm like, because people will talk to you, like,
Right.
so, and he goes, "I just want you to know that you did a great job." He goes,
Oh,
"Those I did Bantu knots because we were in between visits, and he goes, "That
yeah.
you grew up with that." He said, "You
Oh,
didn't grow
that's
up with that.
awesome.
You don't know, you had to learn that." And I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "That's I have respect for that, learning that you learned
Yeah.
that, what to use, how to brush it, how to
Mhm.
get it into a Bantu knot and all this." So
Mhm.
there is a learning
That's
curve,
great.
and you just kinda I felt like I have to, like, kind of humble myself and be like, ask for help. I asked
Right.
at the care
What were
center.
the resources? Yeah, I was gonna say, did you asked your hairdresser or her hairdresser? Did you watch videos online or something? That's what we did. We watched,
All
like,
of
a
it.
lot of videos online, like, all the stuff following, a black hairdresser online who does actual education of white parents who adopt black kids. Um,
Yes,
her
yes.
name is escaping me right now, but I'll link to it
I
in the
was
show
looking it
notes.
up,
Do you
because
know who I'm talking about?
there's a few. There are a few,
Okay.
yeah. Um, it's like there's a few.
Yeah, we'll share the resources.
Yeah,
If you
yeah,
think about it later, shoot them
yeah.
to me and I'll put that all in the show notes because I know it's like, yeah, it's important. It's really
And
important.
it's not, everyone has different hair types. So, like, my hair is different
Right.
than your hair, right?
Totally.
Like,
Yep.
same for anyone. And
That's
so,
right.
learning, like, "Oh, my daughter's curl pattern is this, and this is what works," and I'll ask, like, "Oh, what oils," and they'll make oils for her, like,
Mhm.
they'll put a group of, different oils together so I can spray
Right.
it in her hair, and you have to water it first, like, get it
Yes.
up the
That's right.
follicles, all this stuff. It's like, yes, there was a class we took, and it was right before the pandemic, that was, like, educational on, like, the history of why black hair is so important, and anyway, yeah, so that was really educational on the history of that, and then they taught us how to care for, and,
Right.
grading and all of that, and, yeah, so then we had the pandemic, and then that happened.
Right. Right. Right,
So that made
right.
things a little more challenging.
Yep.
Uh,
Yep.
yeah, so
And do you think you will have more children or how old is she now?
she is 6, and
Okay.
I don't it was a hard journey for us, and then,
Yep.
we adopted right before the pandemic. So 2 weeks she was one of the last adoptions the court did before everything shut down, and
Wow.
so we everything was kind of crazy at that time, right, within the
Yep.
system with everything, and
Sure.
so it took forever to get, like, her papers, and just everything was, you
Was
know
it in court or was it online?
it was in court. It was
In
in court.
court, yeah, that's because I've talked to a lot of people since. Ours were in court as well, but, like, I've heard talk to other people who had to finalize online, and I was
Yeah.
like, oh, that must have been such a like a anticlimactic in
Yeah.
a way, because I just kept dreaming of that day when we were going to be in that courtroom and the
Yes.
judge bangs the gavel and it's like, we're a family. That was such a touchstone for me. The whole time was like just envisioning that. So,
You were in, LA?
in LA, yep,
Yeah.
Edelman Children's Court.
Yep.
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 Yep. We went to every court date. I went to every court date, and, most of them were just terrifying and so hard. And then I always say, like, when we came in for the finalization for the adoption, it was like a spontaneous healing. It was this incredible, incredible experience for us because suddenly it was like me and my husband, and obviously Izzy, this is for my daughter, and then like all of our friends and our people were there. And it just felt all the other times that I went there by myself with my heart in my throat,
Yes.
just not sure what was going to happen. What am I going to learn? And then to just be there and just have it be all love. It's just like this immediate healing that I went through. Did you experience that?
Yeah, it was it's a separate court too. It's the same court, but like
Yes.
you're in a different room, but it looks
Right.
exactly the same.
It looks the same,
It's
and also there was nobody there on our day for some reason. Like, it wasn't like
Yeah,
this thing where there was, like, a million different cases and all these people. It was like we were just there, and that was, like, there were a few people there, but it was pretty much just
it's a
us.
different yeah, I think they do
Yeah.
those on a different day.
Mhm.
Yes, we had my parents flew out for it. Uh,
Mhm.
we had my foster guru people. They had a party at the house after. We had a bunch of friends. We had a photographer come, and she was our wedding photographer. When I asked her, "Oh, how much would it be to do this?" She's like, "I'm going to volunteer my time. This is a beautiful story." So she
Aw.
showed up. So we have like a video, like journal. She's like a journal, kind of journalistic style.
Uh-huh.
So before, in, and after. Of course, you can't do it like in the specific. You could do it in the courtroom, but not
Right.
in the area.
Right.
It was really, it was really great. I think there were about 25 people,
Yeah.
and we took pictures, and it was just
Mhm.
sort of like, oh wow, this is it. This is the day where that you've been wanting and hoping for, and
Yeah.
you asked me earlier, it took us almost 2 years, and
Mhm.
that was considered quick. That's considered
Yeah,
quick.
that I would say that's quick. Ours was 2.5, and then even for Dominic, which was a safe surrender, you would think it would go really fast. It was still 2 years. It was
It's still 2 years.
crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
it was
think average.
almost 2
Yeah,
years. Just
yeah,
shy of 2 years.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, so it was great, and I just felt like this sense of like, okay, we can now relax and rest.
Right.
But then everything shut down. It was COVID. So we
Right.
didn't all that to say we didn't go right into adopting again or fostering again. We were like, we'll take a little break. Yeah. So,
Yep.
we might, I don't know. We are in the system on hold. We said this
Mhm.
is what we're okay with taking and
Mhm.
open to, and now we've had that experience. Like, I don't think we would do another child of a child in the system, but this is
Right.
what we're going to do, like a safe surrender,
Uh-huh.
or I mean, we're just going to go situation by situation. We're sort
Sure.
of, do we do it? I don't know, but we
So
are on
you're
the
still
list.
certified? Like, you're
We're
still certified and
certified.
everything? Okay.
We
Wow.
recertified.
Mhm.
The pandemic kind of, they switched to everything online, and they kind of lost our information, and then they were able to find it, and they put us back
Mm.
in. There was some type of technical issue, but we're
Right.
certified again. Yes. And yes, we're certified. So I don't know if we'll do it.
Does she want another family member? Sibling?
Yes.
She
Yes.
does.
Yeah.
Mhm.
She wants one that has brown skin like her. She's like a
Mhm. Mhm.
black sibling. She wants a sister or a brother.
Mhm.
Um, yeah.
That's a
Did
lot
your
of
daughter?
pressure, isn't it? Does it feel like a lot of pressure? Because we definitely felt that. Because yeah, our daughter really wanted a sibling, and ironically, once she got the sibling, now she's just, like, always annoyed with him. I mean, he's a toddler now, he just turned 3, and so, I think it was exciting when he was first gonna come, although it happened very quickly as it does, so there was not a whole lot of time to prep her for this. Like, we had talked about it, and we said we were recertifying, and then nothing happened for, like, 6 months. And so by the time we got the call, it was like a few days later we had a newborn baby in the house. And in retrospect, when I look back now, I wish that we had been able to prep her a little bit more or just make sure that we were spending more time with her because she definitely felt the thing of like being displaced. Like it used to just be a triangle, it used to just be
Yeah.
us. And she loved it that way. And then suddenly there was this interloper and our attention was split. Our attention was taken away and he needed a lot of attention. And so and then when she realized because she wanted a sibling, but she wanted somebody to play with. And then when she
Yeah.
realized that he can't, babies, you can't play with a baby. So it became
Yeah.
very like, oh God, like it's not fun. And he screams a lot because he was colicky. And now then he became a toddler and he'd like push down her, Legos and do all the stuff that toddlers do. So it's been challenging. It has not been, I mean, it's also great and we have great moments as a family, but it's also really challenging. It's been difficult. More
That's
difficult than
yeah.
we thought, you
I
know?
I I had thought we would have another child and it would be in like one of the embryos, right? And it would be probably like in between like 3 years after. So when she was like 3 or 4, but we had that
Right.
that was the pandemic time. So like
Right.
IVF and for all that froze. Everything was
Yeah.
it kind of threw our plan,
Sure.
as
Yeah.
did my cancer through our family making. And
Right.
then, oh, here we are. So I finished the 5 years within it's 2021, and then I couldn't do we had to wait. It was everything was tricky with IVF and all that during the um, pandemic, and so
Yeah.
we did ultimately do use two. They didn't work, and so
Mhm.
we have one more, and then we're like, but that embryo is not black. It's
Right.
a white baby.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
I guess I feel like I have a little more like everyone has different stories, right? But that's sort of
Right.
like where we are, and we're in this sort of tricky thing of like, do we do it? Would it work? If
Mhm.
it doesn't work, do we do it foster again? It's just hard. And now she's older. So
Yeah.
not like we're getting them close enough together where they're gonna be true playmates.
Right. I know. I know. And
Well, how
that
many years are your kids apart?
so they're 5 years apart. So she was 5 when he came. I know that some people have said that I've talked to have said that the child, if the child was older, the first child, that it's been really great because they love helping out and they can help out and everything. My
Yeah.
daughter's not that person. Like she's not into it. She never played with dolls, like, as a baby, like, she's just not, like, a nurturing she's amazing in many ways, but she's not that person, so that for us didn't work out, but I have heard of other people saying, "Oh, yeah, my daughter, like, she loved him so much, and she dressed him up, and she did all the stuff, and, like, blah, blah, blah," but, like, that's not Izzy, so it really depends, and there's no way to know what's going to happen. You just have to either do it or not do it. Another thing that I'll mention just because it just made me think of it is that with Izzy, because Dominic is black, so he has obviously dark skin and doesn't look like her. I feel
Mhm.
like it's been difficult too because I think that in her like and this is me playing therapist a little bit, but I feel like in her perfect world, we would all look alike because she
Yeah.
really craves that sense of belonging and, um, just belonging to a
Mhm.
family. And she, even though she's half Filipino, she's Japanese, she presents as pretty white. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
lighter skin people wouldn't necessarily know what race she is and I think that, like, that was a really difficult it's been difficult for her in a way I never would have imagined. But she'd always be, "But he doesn't look like us. He doesn't," and when we would
Yeah.
go out to, like, a museum or something, and we would see a black family, she'd be like, "Look, those people look like Dominic. Like, Dominic should be in that family."
Does your
Like,
does your daughter go up to people and say, "Wow, you have beautiful brown skin like me?" Because mine does.
Oh,
And
that's so funny.
how
She
do I? she knows what black and she knows African American, she knows black, like
Right.
she knows these things. And it also, you discover as a parent of a transracial family, not everyone wants to be called black, not everyone wants to be called
Right.
African American, not every,
Yep.
everyone. So I feel like I'm always sort of like feeling things out. And
Yep.
most people that she's done that with they're actually very they like engulf her, they're like,
Mhm.
what's your name? How old are you?
Mhm.
So it's been good, but I feel like I have to kind of like have I always am kind of, maybe it's just me, maybe I'm a nerd,
Mhm.
Nelly, I am, but I'm always like, oh, sorry, we're a transracial family, and so she's just noticing. She always wants to she notices these things.
Yeah, but that's probably great. I mean, on the other side of that, they're probably like, "Yeah, you're right. Like, you do have beautiful brown skin like me, and that's awesome." You know what I mean? Like, hopefully, I mean, I would think
Yeah.
maybe that's how they feel. Yeah, it's funny. My my daughter asked me, a couple of months ago, she was like, "Mom, are we black?" She was like, "Black people are really cool." Like, I think they were studying maybe like Black History Month or so, I don't remember what it was, but she was like, "Black people are really good and they're really cool. And are we black?" And I was like, "Well, Dominic is black.
Yes.
We're a mix. We're a
Yeah.
non-traditional, beautiful, multiracial family."
Yes.
And, she was just kind of like, "Oh, okay." Like, I think she would
Yeah.
either want us all to be dark skinned or all to be,
Yes.
it's just the differences are
I did
difficult
say that.
because no one ever thinks that
Yeah.
that's her brother, and but when you see other kids together, it's like obvious that like they're brother and sister and that kind of thing. And um, yeah, it's just a funny, interesting thing that I never would have thought about
Yeah,
if
I
I
didn't
wasn't
think
in this
about
situation.
when I
Yeah.
filled out those forms years ago. I wasn't like,
Right.
"Oh, someone at the park might be like, 'Are you her babysitter or
Mm-hmm.
are you her mom? You're her mom?'"
Right.
Or people, she's like, "Mom," and she runs over to me, and, people just look. They're just like, "Oh, okay."
Right.
I feel a little sorta like I'm, on display more than other
Mm-hmm.
families do look alike, and my daughter might feel that because she says things like, "I wish I had, this like you," or, I wish you had my skin," like,
Mm-hmm.
so she does want that, and there's that age 5, 6, 7, I think they kinda, like, realize more and more, and so,
Mm-hmm.
like, in the studies that have been done that, they've always noticed, but now they're really gonna ask and start really, like, saying things
Yeah.
and asking questions, which is good. I mean, I think
Right.
it has, it's
Right.
you can't hide away from it,
Right. Right. Yeah, it just has to be an ongoing dialogue, I think,
It
like
is.
it's a
Yeah,
conversation, you know?
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because Dominic is 3 and it hasn't really come up on
yeah,
his side yet, but I'm realizing, like, he's 3, like, we need to talk about it with him anyway, like, even if he's not bringing it up because he's gotta be noticing,
yeah. We have those,
differences.
like, different we have tons of books about it. Do you have a lot
Mhm.
of books, like, you talk about it?
We do have books, but I would love we don't have a lot of transracial family books, that are specifically, like, about that. We do have some that are just sort of, like, happen to show that, but they don't but it's not about that. If you have
Yeah.
any resources in that direction, I would link to those as well. Any
Yeah,
books that you
I do.
love in particular, or anything like that. Thank
Yes.
you.
It talks
Mhm.
like, I'm very science person, like, science-based, like,
Mhm.
because anyway, so I
Yeah,
have books on that too, like,
I love
what is
that.
the science behind different, like, and you can choose, it shows you different skin tones, like, my husband's skin tone is different than mine, and my daughter notices that. Now he's,
Right.
Russian, Polish, like, yeah, so it's just different, we all, and why is that? And so and my daughter's very, like, she, like, will read a book in, like, 2 seconds, so she, like, knows
Mm.
that, and she's at a camp this week where it's at the zoo, and she's like, the counselors are like, "Oh, she knows so many facts about animals that I didn't even know." She just That's just her, she loves it.
Right. Yeah.
For her, that's what we've always kinda done, and again, maybe it's me, nature versus nurture, right?
Mhm.
I've always approached things scientifically, like, "This is what it is, and this is this, and this, and this, and
Right.
these are the reasons you have more melanin," and
Yeah.
just what's going on science-wise.
I love that because Izzy is very science-minded, so that would be
Ah.
really good for Izzy probably too, she would probably love that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Um, we're getting to the end
Uh-huh.
here. I feel like I could talk to you forever, but I do want to ask if I know we have a lot of listeners that are considering
Uh-huh.
this journey and haven't like decided yet. So,
Yeah.
what would you say to anybody who's thinking about doing this?
Well, it's great that they're thinking about it. And I also, um, if you want to have a family, if you're looking, I think it's a great way to change the direction of someone's life. Like you said, people are in the system generation after generation after generation. And so to stop that cycle, it takes someone to be removed from it, so there's that aspect of it. But if you really are it's a beautiful thing to do. It is like we talked about bittersweet. I guess I would just say, you know, well, we tell my daughter there's two trees. There's like an oak tree and a palm tree, right? Palm trees move and they flow when they with things. They go with the flow. They're open. They're willing to learn. And so you have to be a palm tree because an oak tree doesn't go with the flow and can, in a storm can be fall over and get knocked down.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's something you have to be a palm tree in this, and
Mm-hmm.
it is a beautiful journey. It's
Mm-hmm.
bittersweet, and to just try to be the best palm tree you can be in your situation.
I love it. Good analogy. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
We'll end there.
Yeah.
It's been such a pleasure talking to you, and I
You
look
too.
forward
Thanks
to,
for having me.
yeah, let's
Sorry,
stay in touch.
I didn't mean to talk over you.
Okay. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
And
Okay.
stick around. Don't get off just
Okay.
yet. I'm gonna hit end, and then you and I will just close it up. All right. Bye bye.
Bye. Thank you.